Ja, varmt välkomna ska ni vara till den här något annorlunda Whisky ABC-studion. Professorn, det är lite förvirrat. Har vi skaffat oss en portabel studio och nu flyttat den till Viking Line?
Ja, det har vi faktiskt. Det är det vi har. För att kunna delge er allt som händer härifrån.
Mm. Så enkelt är det. Och som ni ser så har vi flera gäster också med oss i studion idag. Och vi börjar med Erland. Vad gör vi här?
Vad vi gör här? Jo, vi ska ha en liten intervju tillsammans med våran Global Malt Ambassador, Georgie Bell, som jag har bredvid mig här. Och ja, det är ju Cinderella Whisky Cruise. Meckat lite för många whiskyentusiaster som för en gångs skull kan köpa whisky direkt på plats. Vilket gör det här väldigt intressant. Och, vi har lite nya produkter som kommer ut här i taxfree eller travel retail-sortimentet som vi kommer att göra en liten provning på också.
Vad trevligt. Ser du fram emot det, professor?
Ja, mycket spännande.
Mm. So, let's switch to English now so that Georgie can join us in the discussion. Well, Georgie, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, it's my first time on the Viking Line, and I've heard some rumours, and so far those rumours aren't true. It's a lovely place to be. No, it's fantastic to be here. It's nice to be back in Sweden. I've come here a couple of times for work previously, and I love the passion and the enthusiasm that people have in Sweden and Norway, you know, across Scandinavia for Scotch whisky. Yeah. I've been working specifically with whisky for 7 years now, travelling around the world for the last 4.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to begin with a question that you actually brought up, or a story that you brought up about women in whiskey. Is that unique or is it not? Because for us it's not unique to have women in whiskey, but not everyone believes that.
No. Yeah, and I'm going to blush now because of that story. No, I did a masterclass earlier and it was really great. We looked at Aultmore versus Craig Ellickey, so the two sides of Speyside. And someone asked me as soon as I walked in what my whiskey credentials were for being there, and then said how rather rare it was that I was as a female. And as I said, I've been working in whiskey now specifically since 2010. And back then, yes, it was a little bit rarer to be on the front end. But not so much anymore. Women have always been involved in whiskey, but we've always been very modest and in the background, as women usually are. Master blenders, there are female master blenders in the whiskey industry. In fact, our master blender for Dewars is Stephanie McLeod,
yep.
A woman.
Yes.
Rachel Barry for Morrison Bowmore, and then you've got Maureen Robinson at Diageo.
As you know, I mean, in Sweden we have both at Mackmyra,
and yep,
we have a female, and at Norrtälje.
Yeah, which
yes.
is what you said, 25% of Swedish whiskey.
Yeah, basically it is. So.
And if you look back in history, I mean, you've got Bessie Williams from Lefroy Distillery, Elizabeth Cumming, the Cumming sisters from Cardew Distillery. You know, so there have been lots of female presences throughout. I think at the moment I'm the only female global brand ambassador, and I've been global within whiskey for the last 4 years or so. And it's nice. It's obviously it's a little bit more of a male-dominated industry, but all the other global brand ambassadors, it's like a nice tight-knit community, and we all look out for one another. And when found out I was coming here, I reached out to some other people, and I see them all like big brothers to me. So it's good.
And you can always think about that. Alan, for instance, he needs to fight about the title for being the best male global brand ambassador, but you are the best woman.
But really, do we have to say you're best female?
No, we don't. We don't.
Oh,
I think
anyway.
I would have to fight either was a male or women global brand ambassador. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Performance.
Well, let's start a bit with Dewars. What is Dewars, and who was John Dewars?
Who was John Dewar? John Dewar was a legend. You know, back in the 1840, when sort of taxes changed, prices changed, and in the 1840s within Scotland you saw this rise of whiskey barons, guys of the day's pioneers, entrepreneurs, who saw that with their father's shops and grocery stores, inspired by tea blending, they could make a whiskey from distilleries in their surrounding areas, their signature whiskey. And by doing that, it ensured that there was consistency and quality above all else. Single malts back then weren't as they were today, you know. And when they were looking at creating blended whiskies, they were looking at creating this consistent character. And John Dewar was one such gentleman who, in 1846, took over his father's business. And at the time, a lot of people were drinking cognac, and he wanted to change their minds. He wanted everyone to be drinking Scotch instead, and so he created Dewars. And then he had 10 sons in total, sons and daughters.
Oh my God.
I know. But 2 of them in particular went over and took over their father's business, and that was Tommy Dewar and John Alexander Dewar. And Tommy Dewar was the eccentric character. He's the guy that moved to London with only 2 contacts, and he's the guy that sailed around the globe, rambled around the world, spreading the love of Dewars. And John Alexander was a bit more of the serious one. And together, when they took over the father's business, they realised how successful they were with it, and they ended up building Aberfeldy Distillery as a result in Aberfeldy in Perthshire, and that became the heart malt of Dewars, and it's still there today. You can try it downstairs, actually.
Yeah, we tried Aberfeldy several times, and Aberfeldy 21 is one of my favorites.
Oh, it's a beauty, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
Yeah.
It is, certainly.
And so over those years, and ever since then, since John started up and his sons took it over, Dewars has gone on to be the world's most awarded blended Scotch whisky as a result, which is phenomenal from such humble beginnings.
Yeah. And it's strange because we almost haven't heard of it in Sweden yet.
Yet.
So it's a bit strange, but I know it has a long history.
It's like crouching tiger, hidden dragon, isn't it? It's just there, and it's coming, and it's ebbing its way forward. And the great thing about what we do within Dewars as well is we talk about the malts within. I think often blended whiskies and single malts are sort of placed side, sort of on opposite ends of the spectrum, and they're not looked at, right? But within Dewars, we do praise the malts within, and I think we're going to be trying one of those today, which is Aultmore, which is actually considered a secret weapon amongst blenders, a top-class dram, a top dresser in the blended whiskey world. So, yeah.
And that's great. Speaking about tasting and speaking about the Dewars is now coming to the Nordic region, shouldn't we try something?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start at the beginning, because that's always a good place to start, with Dewars 12. And we're going to be trying Dewars 12, 15 and then 18. And then we're going to be looking at one of the malts within, which is Aultmore. So if I give these to you.
Professor?
Thank you.
There we go.
So this is the 12.
This is Dewars 12.
I think I've actually tried this at Aberfeldy, at Dewars World of Whiskey.
Yeah.
Once.
I think you've been telling about that. So.
Do you know, whiskey is all about experience, and it's all about those moments when you try them. And I love whiskey because it takes you back to that moment. And so when you smell this, it's going to be like a TARDIS, like a time-traveling machine that will take you back to when you tried it at the distillery. Now, the unique thing for me about Dewars 12 is a maturation technique that we pioneered at the distillery, which is double aging.
Okay.
Essentially, we age the whiskey for 12 years or more, because as you know, that age statement is the minimum age inside that bottle. We then blend it together. I say we, I mean Stephanie McLeod's, another female in the whiskey industry. And then we age it again. And we leave it to marry in oak casks, exhausted oak casks. So they're not giving much in terms of flavour, but they're allowing the whiskey time to rest, and we do this for up to 6 months. So we age, we blend, we age again.
Yeah.
And so what that allows is it allows the flavours to mellow, it allows the flavours to come together and really create these special bonds. It's like when you make chili or lasagna and it tastes better the next day.
Yes, exactly. So,
I should find a more glamorous way of saying that, but I can't think of one.
So we should try to put lasagna in oak casks and store it for 12 years.
Yeah, well, let's try it then.
Yeah. Cheers. It's a very malty blend.
Yeah, it is.
I like it.
Yeah.
With some fresh, good honey in it.
Yeah, and very little graininess.
I think that's a really good description of it, actually, a good multi-blend, and it is just that. And what I often do is I like to do a little bit of a deconstruction of it, because, again, that word malts, we polarize sort of blends and single malts when really we should look at them together.
Yeah.
And with this, that double aging, it gives this beautiful viscosity. It just clings to the inside of your mouth. And as we go through the range, so from 12 through to 15 and 18, you'll find that voluptuousness, that juiciness intensifies as we go through.
Oh, that seems really good.
Yeah, I think I can feel the honey from Aberfeldy as well.
Yeah.
In this one.
Well, Aberfeldy is the heart malt, and Aberfeldy, we've got a longer fermentation time.
Yeah.
So that creates this honeyed richness in the dram.
Which I really love.
Yeah, right? It's beautiful, isn't it?
And it's so soft in the ending as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really balanced blended whiskey, and I don't prefer blended whiskey if it's too grainy. I don't like that, but this one is it's not bad at all.
I think blended whiskey is often underrated, and as I said with this, I really think it's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's been out there for ages.
Yeah.
But it's been one of those, it's just been Dewar's, and then you try it and you go, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know what was inside of that.
Yeah, this I could actually have one at home and actually drink it, and then that's a good.
That's a good benchmark. To go
That's a
by.
good benchmark.
I don't know if it is, but so what's the price of this one?
That's why I have Alan too.
That is a good question. To be honest, I'm not really certain about the prices at travel retail, to be honest.
I've got the price in my
Since
handbag.
oh, you've got everything in your bag, perfect.
It's a couple of hundred.
You caught me. For once, you caught me. No, I'm not really sure about the prices at the moment, but let's see.
399.
399.
Yeah, 400 krona.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair price.
It is actually, because it is so much better than the maybe 5 or 6 year old non-age statement blended that are generic. So it's definitely worth it.
I agree.
Right, exactly. And the skill and the patience, and especially with that double aging technique, you know, by laying it in casks for another 6 months, that's an extra step that adds extra money onto it. People forget about all these behind the scenes pieces, like casks, like warehouse storage, and all of these things. It's quite bizarre for a company to do, but it works, and we think it's really integral. So, and that actually leads us on to the 15-year-old. If you'd like to try that.
Yes,
Yes,
sure.
we'd love to.
Because in the 15-year-old, we're adding an extra 3 years onto this. We're adding an extra 3 years onto this.
Do you have a different aging or maturing process for this one, or is it the same, just longer?
It's the same, but just a little bit longer, and you find with those extra years, you just get a little bit more complexity coming through. It's just as simple as that.
It's actually more fresh, and I really like that. Feel some grass tones as well, I think.
From Aultmore.
Well, yeah,
citrus.
indeed, and we'll try that after these, because I find it quite interesting to then delve in, especially as Aultmore is considered the top dresser in the blended whiskey world, so it ties in together quite nicely. But yeah, with this one, it's just that next step up. And an older whiskey isn't necessarily a better whiskey, as we know.
No, not always.
And age and maturity are two very, very different things, as we also know, right? Yeah. But with these two different whiskies, they're offering you something different. Whiskey is all about occasionality. Different whiskey is for different occasions, different moments in time. Yeah. I like all whiskey. Apart from seriously heavily sherried ones, I'm not a big fan of those. But that's just to my taste. I prefer a glass of sherry. I'm a big sherry nut. But there are different whiskies for different occasions, and I think with the Dewar's, the 12, 15 and 18, it's case in point. They're different whiskies.
Oh.
And they're just small graduations.
I actually believe that this one is more balanced for my taste, because it both have like the honey, the sweetness, but it also have the citrus, which I really enjoy. So I think we have more tastes.
I like it's a bit more peppery. It's a bit more pepper in this one, and it has a bit more character than the 12 as well. It's not as plain. It's more how do you say uppkäftig in English?
Exactly.
Well, everyone will understand that at least.
Yeah. No, I am practicing my Swedish, so I'll write that one down and look it up later.
Yeah, say that on the next tasting. This one is
more
really
Krägeliki
uppkäftig.
feeling to
I
it.
can't. Robust, muscular.
Yeah. Sturdy.
Yeah, it's sturdier. Yeah, it's
okay.
yeah.
And that could be the Krägeliki coming through with its worm tub condensers and that nice muscular robustness in the single malt. Let's move on to the 18-year-old, because I know we don't have much time, and I can wax lyricals about these whiskies for hours. So here we go.
Thank you.
So this is Dewar's 18.
459, by the way, for the 15.
459.
Yeah.
Really, it's not much more expensive. It's almost the same price.
Well, because you know what? Even though they're 3 years different, they are really what's in 3 years. It really is just different whiskies for different occasions, and so and I find that often people have preferences. So they might prefer the 12-year-old, they might prefer the 15-year-old. Not that they're interchangeable, but they're just
They're a bit different. They have their own characters,
right.
definitely.
And then you come on to the 18-year-old.
Sometimes older whiskey is better.
Well, different moments, right? We're coming late. It's later at night now. It's what, 8 o'clock almost. And so often later on, you look for something that's a little bit more robust, and you've got something like this, and that fits the bill. Again, you've got that double aging technique coming through on this one.
Yeah. Now you're beginning to feel the oak for real. Some tannins, not very heavily, but
a nice sophisticated tannic note. It's that sophisticatedness, almost like a cigar paper style of tannic note. Yeah.
I actually believe that my famous fall leaves are coming through in this one.
Fall leaves?
Your autumn leaves. Yeah.
Autumn leaves.
Oh, I used to talk like that. I used to say that, I still do, almost like crunching through leaves in the middle of autumn, and it's kind of like that feeling of a chill in the air. This is definitely an autumnal dram.
Yeah. Thank you. Finally someone else who actually
understands what you're saying,
Autumn leaves,
thinks
fall
about
leaves.
what it means.
Well, I mean, you know, within whiskey, it's very easy for us to say this is sweet and fruity and mellow. But that really doesn't tell us much.
No.
Instead, what we need to do is paint these pictures with our words. And it's much nicer to say instead that this whiskey is autumnal. It's like crunching through autumn leaves that have fallen to the ground when it's a little bit cold. You've got your scarf wrapped up around you. You might have a hot toddy in a flask next to you as well. I know you're smelling this and you're going, I'm there, I can smell it.
I know, you need to connect the feeling.
Yeah.
Later tonight, if we have the time, we will taste a whiskey which will be called the whiskey on the road where the life ends, I think.
Oh God.
Don't mention which one it was.
Interesting.
If we have the time.
Okay.
Yeah, this is really good actually. It's a really good dram.
And none of them need water as well. Again, because of that technique coming through for me anyway. But of course, that's a very personal thing. But I don't take water with these. They do mix really well though. The 12-year-old makes a cracking highball. Lots of ice, soda, with a lemon twist on top. It's a really nice alternative way to drink whiskey in the summer. You know, you can imagine sitting in Stockholm on the side of the river where those lovely little river cafes pop up.
Yeah.
Yep. And having a whiskey and soda, or stirring it down as a Rob Roy or in an old-fashioned. There are various ways that you can try them, and I believe that Dewar's 12 gives you that flexibility to enjoy Scotch whiskey again for even more occasions than when you just want a single malt, or sorry, a single dram.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at, now you've tried that and you're bedazzled by it. I'm going to bedazzle you even further with a single malt that is considered a top dresser in the whiskey industry. And what does that mean? Well, blenders earmark certain distilleries across Scotland. In fact, Charlie McLean has said that there are 12 distilleries in particular across Scotland that carry the complexity, the character and the finesse that is just the je ne sais quoi, the icing on the cake when it comes to a blended whiskey. When you're looking for that extra edge, that extra dimension to take it further, and Aultmore consistently is one of those whiskies. Similarly, there are others. You know. I look at Longmorn fondly. Longmorn is also another top dresser whiskey, and I feel that Longmorn is another secret amongst whiskey enthusiasts. Similarly with Aultmore, I used to work for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. That was my first ever global ambassador role, and back then, you know, would get Craigellachie and great, but Aultmore was a little bit rarer to come by, and it's hard to find as a single malt because blenders don't want to let it out of their grasp.
No, of course not.
No, but we've teased a bit out of them. So, without further ado, we're going to jump in actually, because we wanted to go like for like, because you've just tried Dewar's 18. And so let's try Aultmore 18.
Yeah.
So you can see, you know, where the sort of, not the comparison lies, but
feel the signature maybe, recognize it from
again, it's that
from the Dewar.
It's that icing on the cake on the top, which I really love about this.
Yeah.
So that's this one here. It's in the heart of Speyside. It's on the 9 Mile Bucky Road, and it's actually the distillery is where a
Yeah. Well,
shall I
what
just
can I
stop
say?
talking? I'm just gonna- Do you know, I once did a tasting with someone. He's actually here. He's another whiskey ambassador, and we were doing a tasting, and we got to the final whiskey, and I started waxing lyricals about it, and he went to me, "Georgie, shut up." I was like, "What do you mean, shut up?" He was like, "I love it, but just stop talking so that I can fully appreciate it."
We appreciate you talking. It's interesting to hear about the whiskey. We're not Dewar specialists, or not even Aultmore,
But back before 1823, when the new Excise Act went in, and this won't be a history lesson, I hated history at school, there was a lot of illicit distilling going on in Scotland.
Yep.
And a lot of it actually happened around Aultmore. It's called the land of the foggy moss. Because of the water retention in the land, it meant that there was a lot of fog and a lot of rolling hills. And so that meant there was a lot of sneaky places for illicit distillers to hide from
it's perfect.
excisemen. Exactly. So we say this is from smuggler's land because of that. And as a distillery, we look to create this very light, grassy, floral, almost mystical style of single malt that is, when you look at a Speyside, you think of Speyside whiskies as being quite mellow and quite fruity, right?
Yeah.
And this is almost on the lighter end of that, but almost like a delicate, the more delicate finesse end of it.
yeah, it is really my experience from Aultmore as well. It's a very light and very on the light end of Speyside. It's not rough in any way.
No, it's very elegant. A mixture of both bourbon and sherry casks. So you've got a lovely bit of that vanilla cask, and you'll have that come into play when actually we move on to Aultmore 21, which is phenomenal.
You have the caramel, the butter in this one, and the grass.
But there is no caramel, so this is at 46%.
Yeah.
And it's non-chill filtered and no caramel colouring.
No,
So-
but the taste is there.
Yeah.
But the taste is good. But no, the
Butterscotch.
taste is phenomenal. Yeah.
I don't need to say more than that. Let's just say,
Yeah, and you definitely recognize this style from the Dewar's 18 as well.
Yeah.
It's
It's that lighter touch in it that just lifts it. It's almost like, I love drinking cocktails. Everyone loves drinking cocktails.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. I was a bartender originally. That's actually how I got into this. And it's like spritzing an orange on top of a Manhattan, right? It's that orange spritz on top, or spritzing a lemon on top of a martini. It just lifts it slightly. And that's what this does with this. It's a lemon twist over the
I
top.
agree.
Yeah, I
And even though
definitely
it's
agree.
kind of soft, I still think it has the broad complexity, which I really like.
Yeah. Maybe I don't appreciate the 12-year-old Aultmore to drink neat like this, but when you come to the 18, it has a maturity and an elegance and a complexity that really is. It's really good.
Yeah. Tell you what I'm going to do is, while you've got that and keep that where it is, let's try the 21 next to it, because it's very interesting. So it's an extra 3 years. It's again a mixture.
It's a bit darker in the color.
It's a
isn't it?
mixture of both bourbon and sherry casks. But I think there's definitely more. Of course, it changes every time.
Yeah.
So the proportions are going to change, but there's definitely more of a proportion of sherry casks within this one, which you can tell from the colour alone. When you smell it, you might be like, it's kind of similar, but then there's the taste.
Yeah.
And that's the hoi mama moment. That is the big moment where you go, Jesus, this is incredible. Aultmore for me is always my aperitivo style whiskey. But this is coming into darker, more sultry territories.
Some orange and some chocolate.
And some depth in
I
this
can
one.
even see from the legs in your glass, the way the glass is reflecting. Like, it is thick and it's just sticking to the inside of the glass. You know it's going to be
now
juicy.
it's we're talking a much more oily style.
Right. which we don't. I mean, we use shell and tube condensers at the distillery. There's a reasonable amount of proper contact, so we're not looking to create an oily style of whiskey, but that's just what happens over those 21 years. Yeah, it's still identifiably Aultmore, which I think is absolute key, because when you lose your distillery character, you lose your provenance. And we have 115 odd distilleries in Scotland, and provenance is key.
This is an excellent dram.
It's actually so good, so my glass got broken.
What?
Yeah, no, what happened?
How did that happen?
Maybe it was the whiskey, it was so spectacular.
Must be the oiliness, I think. Really tasteful.
Yeah, it is, and
the dark fruit and the taste.
And again, this has much more character actually than the 18-year. It's. I would actually say it's not as elegant. It's a bit more.
No, it's a bit more boisterous.
Yeah,
more of an after dinner one.
Yeah, but I like it. I'm not much for the elegant whiskies. I'm more like this style.
Are you an Islay whiskey lover?
From the beginning, yes.
Yeah, well then there we go.
Yeah.
Well, everyone here is.
I know. Oh, not everyone. I had a couple of people in my masterclass that didn't like Islay whiskies, so you know.
Oh, there are couples.
But again,
we know who they are.
One of my favorites are Aberfeldy 21, and that's not an Islay whiskey. So.
No, exactly. No. You're definitely getting into almost your darker sort of, not smoked, but almost sort of porter-esque style whiskey here. It would sit very well next to, I once had a Nils Oscar smoked porter, which is phenomenal. And this would sit, it could almost sit next to it, which is a big thing to say for Aultmore.
Yeah,
so.
it is.
Yeah.
It is actually.
We actually need to sum this up a
bit.
Yeah,
we need to. It's very nice to sit here, but
it is.
Yeah.
We need to move on. I would like to be here all night, but
we have the whiskey for it.
Me too. Exactly. I just need to get a set of glasses, and I'm with you guys on that one.
Superb.
Yeah.
Alan, could you fix that?
Everything I can fix for the right price.
No, but if you are at the Viking Line during this weekend, please take a visit to Bacardi and John Dewar's.
Yeah.
And visit Georgie. And could you, Alan, please tell us the price upon these different whiskies that we have been drinking now?
Yes, I can.
That's only because I want to win again.
Yes, and this time I'll use the paper. Okay. Just to be sure. If we're talking about the Aultmore 21 years old, which we finished off with, it's 1,099.
Yep.
And if we talk about the 18-year-old, it's 799.
Wow.
Yep.
Really?
Yes, it is.
It's really good.
It is, well...
Is that a buy recommendation from you?
Yes.
You could almost hear that in between the lines.
Yeah.
I'll be buying one.
Exactly. I got a bit surprised myself. And what did we cover before that? It was the 18-year-old Dewar's blend.
Yep.
Which will have the nice price of 579 kroner.
That's really good. That's really good, actually. Yeah.
Well, to sum it up, thank you, Georgie, for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you, Erland.
Samma.
Trevligt att se som vanligt.
Ja.
Och tack till alla er som tittade på Whiskey Play och har det fortsatt bra.
Tack för oss.